Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. In this podcast, we'll be having discussions around the secrets which attract lasting, healthy, fulfilling relationships, creating a healthy mindset, and what women should know and understand about men. Introducing your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts, relationship expert, trainer, speaker, and best-selling author of the Cupid's Bow technique. Lyn's mission is to have a positive impact in reducing divorce, domestic violence, and suicide.
Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. This is your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts. And today, listeners, I've got an exciting guest. Her name is Norma B. She is a trauma and relationship coach. And today we're going to be talking about how childhood trauma, get my teeth back in, impacts adult relationships. So that ended up being a bit of a mouthful for me. But anyway, regardless of that, Norma, very warm welcome to you.
Thank you, Lyn, for having me. I'm so happy to be here today.
Exciting for me too. And I can very much relate to this. So for the benefit of the audience, we're going to be digging deep into childhood trauma and how that impacts our adult relationships. And I know this had a definite impact on my future relationship. So for the benefit of the audience, let's talk about what would be your definition of what actually trauma actually is.
Yeah, so in theory, we have big T traumas and small T traumas. Big T traumas being things like rape or a physical beating or parents dying and you're an orphan, or having to leave your home country and unstable outside and circumstances and relationships. But then there's a ton more small T traumas, which are father never spending time with children, or parents being too busy with their own lives and they are not emotionally available for their children, or women, for girls, they are not affirmed, they are beautiful, they are capable, they are worthy, they are enough. All these, mainly what I'm seeing when I'm working with my clients is trauma is what parents didn't do, but they should have.
Absolutely. And it's not to point the finger of blame, because I think any parent is doing the best they can with the knowledge and resources that they have at any one time. And they're probably just a product of what their parenting examples were like.
Yeah. It's not meant to blame. I'm just trying to paint the picture of the why things happen. And not in order for anyone to feel blamed, or even if people have children and they may find themselves doing this kind of stuff. It's just bringing awareness of what children really need in order to thrive and develop positive self-image and self-esteem. And children need a lot of attention and loving presence, and even more important, they need to learn how to process emotions. My definition of trauma personally is anything that emotionally activated you beyond your abilities to process is trauma. Because it can be feeling alone, abandoned, it can start very early. I know in hospitals, some hospitals offer the first night of baby after he is born to be separated from his mother. And that can be the trauma itself, being separated from the only person you've known for 9 months, and then not hearing her, not smelling her, not being near her. It can feel very isolating, and you may feel abandoned. And no one is with these babies, and they don't know how to process the abandonment. They just feel terrible. And even after they are able to talk and walk and they develop, they still need a lot of safe space where they can process their anger, their disappointment, their frustration, without us judging them for being angry. What I often see is parents see their child having a tantrum. They're like, stop, this is nothing to be angry about. Stop making such drama. It's not a big deal. But it's that's gaslighting, basically. If a child feels something is a big deal and you tell them it's not a big deal, then they they learn to suppress what they feel, and they, especially women, they just go and find ways to make others feel pleased, and then we get a lot of people pleasers. And these children, what the only thing they need is just you being able to handle their anger. That's like, if I had one tip for parents, just learn how to handle your child's anger without blaming, humiliating, like isolating child when he's angry. Just accept the anger. He's experiencing anger. Because what happens when all of these unprocessed emotions, the children just have to kind of suck it up and just move on, is it stays in the body, and it creates negative beliefs about themselves. I'm not worthy. When I'm angry, I don't deserve love. My emotions are bad. I'm never enough. And then we get adults who believe all these things, and the root of these beliefs are unprocessed childhood emotions. So that's how, and then we carry these emotions, and the emotions that are stuck in our bodies also form our thought processes and our patterns, because we attract patterns that are familiar to us. Meaning, if a woman, when she was a daughter, she was a child, was constantly criticized and her parents were never happy with her, she will very likely find men who will constantly criticize her and will never be happy with anything she does. And she will be so frustrated, and she will have no idea why that's happening. And the solution for her is to feel the critic, feel the criticism, allow herself to feel all the humiliation and the disappointment, and just allow herself to feel that. To just, okay, I disappointed someone. Okay, how do I feel about this now? How does that feel in my body? And for a lot of people, they can do it by themselves. They just have to create a sense of safety in order to allow themselves to experience the emotions. But when there were bigger, like when there was a lot of trauma, you can't do it, because your subconscious won't allow you to experience emotions, because that will just trigger too many defense mechanisms. Defense mechanisms are like patterns that helped us survive. So if you were constantly criticized, you may just learn to stop hearing people when they say negative things. You just don't hear it, because that's how your body protected itself from hearing negative stuff, right? In that case, I always suggest finding someone who is trained in somatic approaches to really allow the body to tell what's happening and what was happening. Because the way people usually approach trauma is they go to a therapist and they just, for years, talk about their lives and their family and how they felt, but they just, it doesn't go beyond the conscious level. It doesn't go into emotions. It doesn't go in the body. It doesn't get to the root of the problems. That's why people sometimes heal, like they go to therapists for decades.
I know,
they still suffer so many, they still have so many issues. Because that's like you, and I just watched a video recently about how heart has its own cells that carry memory from trauma. And just by talking about it with your mind and your conscious part of your brain, you cannot possibly address the heart cells and process the trauma in the heart. And that's why I'm so passionate about when people try to fix their relationships, or they try to finally break the pattern of attracting emotionally unavailable men, or They are constantly stuck in the, I don't know, whatever cycle that doesn't benefit them really. I always say just go back and look at the problems, but not in a way of like, oh, let's go and dig up all the shit that happened in the last 3 or 4 or 5 decades. However long have you been here? But just look at the pattern. Why I'm always attracting emotionally unavailable men? How is that helping me? How is this allowing me to not step in the full reality of responsibility for my own life? Because let me explain. If you have a cycle of attracting emotionally unavailable men, then you will find, I don't know, a bully or someone who never has time for you. And the relationship won't provide the safety necessary for you to overcome the hurdles and the trauma you've experienced in the past.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can relate, because I personally have been through serious sexual assaults, and that did impact my future relationships to the point where I hadn't realized actually until I obviously did some personal development work on myself that I was living on high alert all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very common. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, you know, I think there's quite a lot of women probably out in the world that are probably living in that same state and not even aware that they're living in that state. And that to a degree closes your heart off. And that did for me in my relationship with my ex-husband. You know, we had a good, happy-ish relationship. He was a good man, good husband, good father to our daughters. But, you know, my heart wasn't open in that relationship. And I wondered why I wasn't feeling as fulfilled as what I could have done. You know, and I suppose it was a case of you don't know what you don't know until you do.
That's so true. You don't know. And also one thing I noticed is what I love about somatic processing of patterns is you don't have to think. You just have to allow yourself to feel. Because whenever I go into the method, let's say we pick a problem we want to work on, I constantly attract emotionally unavailable men. And then I ask, like, how does that feel in your body? What's coming up? And then always something else comes up. I was always criticized in my family. And then we go and take a look at this. Okay, how does it feel to be criticized all the time? And then I felt like I'm never good enough. Okay, and then like it just uncover we go deeper and deeper, and without like sometimes I feel like therapists try to do the same thing, but just with the conscious mind. But really, our body knows, like it always gets you to the source of the issue. It's in the end we almost always come to I'm afraid I wasn't lovable, or I was afraid I'll be abandoned, or no one will take care of me, and some really primal fears. And once we process this fear, which is again just a sensation, that's like just an emotion stuck in your body, then all the patterns and all the beliefs are gone. Because that's like I didn't like I don't want to, honestly. I don't, although there is a scientist in me who's interested in this kind of stuff, especially when I'm having conversations like this, where I'm like, oh, so why does this connect to that and yada yada, and try to make this whole thing make sense. But actually what I'm more interested in is just trusting people that they have their answers, and that my job there is just to create a safe space for them when they can allow themselves to feel all the things they were not allowing themselves to feel beforehand. And I just came up with the best kind of explanation how healing journey works and what trauma does. Recently, it happened on one of my sessions. A client says, why were we able to deal with this problem so quickly? I thought it was going to take so long. And that was our, 10th session or something. And I was like, just imagine when we started, in your brain, in the safety department, there were like 50 men, very serious and very like kind of a little angry maybe, that each represents one defense mechanism. And so the first problem we worked on, you had to convince all those 50 men to allow you to experience what you wanted, to go after what you want. And then eventually they realized, okay, so I guess I'm not necessary here anymore. She can clearly handle the thing I was like helping her protect from. And so they leave, and every time we do the mind shifting, which is a set of methods that I use when I'm doing somatic work, every time a couple of them leave. And so in the end, or let's say this session that we were having, there were just 3 more people. And it's so much more quickly to kind of convince them, let's say, oh, it's okay, I can handle that. You don't have to protect me from feeling these uncomfortable feelings, because I can handle that now. And that's what healing journey for me is, to really things get better and better every time.
Yeah, I totally support what you're doing and the way you're doing it as well, because I don't think we're educated as humans to really understand our feelings and how important it is to acknowledge them, and that our negative feelings can in fact are a sign that something needs to be healed.
Yeah,
that is our sign and signal, isn't it, that something needs to be healed within. So if we're walking around in our relationships feeling resentful or angry or jealous or whatever it is, that is your body signaling to you that something needs to be healed here.
Yeah, so true. And also I see, like, I also sometimes work with wives, and they say my husband is this, all the list of the bad things he does and how he is. And then I'm like, relationship is a dynamic. There, like, it takes 2 to tango. And then she'll say, yeah, but like he's at work constantly, and he doesn't kiss me when he comes home, and he doesn't play with the kids, and like everything's on him. And then what we do is we embody the new identities that are supporting of her being a loving and supporting wife. And then just by her changing her internal attitude about her marriage and about her husband, it allows the husband to grow and change and improve and become more loving and attentive, even if he's not in this whole personal development thing. And I love it so much when they say, he will never go to therapy with me. And I say, he doesn't have to. And she's like, what? How are you going to change him if he doesn't do anything? And I say, you have you have power in your relationship. You can impact, what you do on yourself also has impact on him. It impacts the dynamic you have, and then it also affects how he behaves.
Absolutely.
And if he feels that you're constantly on edge and you're angry at him because he's not home early enough, and he's not spending enough time with the kids, and he's not bringing home enough flour and inviting her on enough dinners, he's not going to be really excited to change that, because he just feels all the anger and how he disappoints you all the time. But if he feels like my wife is inviting and she is happy and she is so charming again, then he he might be more inclined to do something about it, to like play the game, just come along for the ride, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is exactly what I teach as well, that women have so much power in their relationships, and they don't need to rely on the husband coming, to any sessions or being a part of any sessions, because just by helping women know their own power and changing their energy and their thoughts, that in itself has a huge impact on their partner, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Although I'm not personally a big fan of affirmations, which sometimes get confused with like this, just think this thought and like everything's gonna be okay, and like thought creates our reality. I mean, it is true to some degree, but also, like I said, the thoughts are coming from our beliefs, and beliefs are coming from our past. And so, I mean, if you're able to manipulate the thoughts without going deep in the body work, kudos to you. I don't know many people who are capable of that. But sometimes, like it's too hard to just try to like enforce new thoughts on your mind. It just doesn't, like, if you feel like crap and you try to convince yourself that you're a beautiful princess, that I can't see how that would work out well.
No, I think there's too much of a leap there, but there are sort of significant stages. So if you're in a sort of state of frustration and you have a belief that is supporting something that's making you feel frustrated, you can actually get to a point where you could probably move a stage more forward, not perhaps where you're joyous and abundant and living with absolute a full heart, but you can move it from probably frustration to contentment or hopefulness.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, it's like stacking and
Yes.
just doing the small steps. Yeah, that's I can see how that would work. But again, if there's not too much of a negative fuel that fuels the negative thing
Yeah,
or pattern.
absolutely. It's literally, being aware that you're in that negative state, understanding what belief might be supporting that, and not necessarily trying to take a huge leap to change that negative state to the opposite extreme, because that's unrealistic. But you can take a little step forward, towards feeling a bit better.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I see. I agree. That's definitely helpful. And sometimes, if that's too hard, I would just say just try to feel the things that you feel like you can't change. Like if you're very frustrated, just allow yourself for a minute. It doesn't have to be an hour or an evening. Just for a minute, just close your eyes and just feel the frustration. Just allow it. Stop resisting it, because the emotions get stuck because we resist feeling them and experiencing them with our bodies. That's a tip I always give if someone is stuck in one model and wants to switch but can't.
And it's okay to cry. I've said this on previous episodes. Crying can be healing tears, and it's a form of release, isn't it?
Yeah, crying. I always support crying. Oh my gosh. Some I don't know why we still have so much shame about crying. I like usually I think most of my clients cry at one point. Because it's just a lot of sadness, and we have many reasons to be sad about. Our life didn't go as planned. Our childhood wasn't as planned. Our parents weren't what we wanted them to be and needed them to be. And it's just like so sad once you realize that. And they didn't equip you well for the world, and they didn't give you all the knowledge and the examples of how to thrive in the relationships that we all know gives the most meaning in our lives. Loving relationships, feeling loved and supported, and having fun with people you have around yourself. And that can be a huge source of sadness. Yeah.
Definitely. So, Norma, I think you've really, really got a very good understanding of how childhood trauma impacts adult relationships. And if there's anybody listening that's been through some childhood trauma, or even some, teenage trauma or adult trauma, if they want to be in a position where they can reach out to you, what would be your best contact information?
You can find me on Facebook. I suggest we share the link in the notes, because my surname is something most of the world probably have no idea how to pronounce or how to write down, because my surname is Brščič. But also another place where we can meet is also my Facebook group called Childhood Trauma, Toxic Stress, PTSD, Recovery, Healing, and Freedom. That's the name of my Facebook group, and we can also share the link to that in the notes.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So final words then around, if somebody's listening and they can really relate to and having been through childhood trauma, and it's definitely impacted their future relationships and probably their current relationships, your final words about, something that could help them on the back of listening to this particular episode.
Every trauma can be healed. Take responsibility for your life. Take charge of your own life. Stop living as you are a victim of what happened to you. Because if you're 25 years or older, you are very much capable of taking care of yourself. You can do this with, there's plethora of ways how to go about it. My favorite, like I said, is somatic processing. Reach out. It doesn't have to be very expensive if the money is the issue, or you feel like I don't have the money to afford services like this now, because there are many ways you can go and learn how to process stuff, even for even if you don't have a lot of money to spend on right now, because I know a lot of people with trauma have severe chronic pain or fibromyalgia or are on disability, and they don't have a lot of money. And that's not the reason why you should not go for it. You can heal all chronic conditions, you can heal all trauma, you can improve your relationships, you can attract the most loving partner in your life. Everything's possible. It just takes you to keep moving forward.
I think quite often, the physical symptoms, the dis-ease that we actually, embody after trauma is usually because we've suppressed that trauma, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it definitely makes more, the more stuck emotions we have in our bodies, the more likely it's gonna show as a symptom, even physical symptoms. Yeah,
absolutely. You talked about the somatic process. Just give the listeners a definition of what that somatic means briefly.
Yes, soma is a Greek word for body. So somatic is really anything that has to do with body. I sometimes say somatic processes or somatic approaches or body-oriented approaches. That's just the same thing. And it has to, there is also a plethora of somatic approaches these days, and nervous system calming down and mitigation, which is essential. I mean, if you don't feel safe, nothing's gonna happen. You will just get stuck in fight or flight, like you've been for so long. What is even my favorite? Let's say my favorite way of somatics are mind shifting methods, because they allow you. If you work with a coach who is certified in mind shifting, he or she will create the safety for you, and then with the right questions, he or she will invite your body and your subconscious to release and really show where things are coming from and what's the source, what's the root cause of the issues you're trying to fix. And because usually somatics is just like, oh, when you're angry, just breathe and find safety. And mind shifting is more like, okay, when you're angry, just, okay, survive the anger. But then if you want to stop getting triggered and being angry all the time, get to the root of the trigger. And that's also what mind shifting allows. And that was something I used on myself the most, just clearing the triggers, because trigger is always a suppressed emotions, and there's this button and someone pushes it and then you just go and explode. And when you address like what's this anger, what's behind the anger, you have to be calm. You cannot be triggered and doing this. You have to be calm and then just allow yourself to explore what's behind the trigger. And then when you reach the point of like figuring out, oh, that's the original issue. Okay, and then like, I know that can be something like I was never listened to. It's all often the triggers, especially for parents. And then, okay, just feel yourself comfortable while allowing yourself to feel that you're not being listened to. And then once you're comfortable with that, it won't trigger you anymore.
Absolutely. And it does work, 100%. It does work. So just know that if you're listening to this and can relate to anything we've discussed today, then these actual tips and processes do work, and you can get to a stage where you can actually manage your emotions really effectively and really positively going forward.
Yeah, that's like, for me, I've never, when I went to therapy, it was always like, how did you feel when this and this happened? And you would feel like the shame or the fear or abandonment or disgust or whatever it was. But they never, I don't know, they never allowed us, or they didn't know how to guide us into really processing that. Because I remember I was attending group therapy for a year, and after each session, I was completely dysregulated, and I needed a couple of days to kind of put myself back together, because I was just like, so many things were going on and I wasn't able to handle and really come to a place where I'd be okay with myself and the emotions. And that's why when I'm working with clients, I always just pick a small problem. I mean, just one problem, let's say. It doesn't have to be small. Some of them are pretty big. Just one problem, and then just work on it as long as it doesn't feel like a problem anymore.
Excellent. I love that. Oh, we're coming up to the end of time, so we're going to have to leave it there, Norma. Thank you so much for sharing your tips and your wisdom. It's been a pleasure.
You're so welcome.
So it just leaves me to say that true love starts with opening our hearts. And until next time, goodbye for now.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Hearts Entwined podcast. You can follow Lyn via the Facebook group Two Hearts Entwined, or search Lyn Smith, inspirational speaker, at LinkedIn, or email lyn@hearts-entwined.com. That's LYN@hearts-entwined.com. Remember, true love starts with opening our hearts.